We see every day that there are a lot of huge news stories and events competing for our attention. Even so, Irving's Complete Count Committee and the U.S. Census Bureau want to make sure you do not forget that this is a census year. Here with an update on how things are going with that is Assistant Regional Census Manager Jerome Garza. Jerome, thank you for being with us.
Thank you, and good morning to everyone in Irving. So
Yes.
glad to have you here.
Well, thank you. So the first thing to know, the deadline for the census is extended. How much time do people have?
Thank you very much for asking. As a result of COVID-19, the Census Bureau has adjusted not only our timelines, but our operations for the safety and protection of our employees. We now have until the 31st of October to go online to 2020census.gov or go on the telephone 844-330-2020 and answer 10 easy questions and fulfill the 2020 census.
And even with that extra time, we know that the Census Bureau has resumed field operations that had been suspended because of COVID. So what does that mean? What is exactly happening right now?
Well, what we are doing out in the field is we are reaching out to people who have not gone online yet and answered the census. We have many different operations, some in residential and others to what we call our group quarters. In other words, the military bases, state prisons, federal prisons, many of the shelters that help our homeless people to make sure that we count all residents. Remember, the census is done only once every 10 years, and we use those numbers for the next 10 years. For instance, today, over $675 billion annually are returned to local cities and counties based upon the number of residents that we have counted there. What does it do? Is a hospital important to have in your neighborhood? Is an elementary school? Is a firehouse? If you say yes to any of those items are funded through the Census Bureau count that we have every 10 years.
Yeah, and certainly in Irving, we have seen some of the benefits of census dollars. Community development block grant money paid for recreation center improvements is just one example. But getting on to the response rate, when I last checked the census website, the response rate here in Irving was about 54%. That's slightly lower than the state and national response rate. So what impact could that have?
Once again, everyone that has not answered the census, we will go out to every one of those households and ask them to answer the census. The biggest impact is if we're not able to count individuals, and we have been very successful in doing that, it reduces the dollars available to the local communities. So your city councilman, your county commissioners, they have less dollars to work with to do such improvements and to provide services to all the residents in that area. That's number one. Number two, what the census does is it provides representation. The House of Representatives is reapportioned every 10 years. We've been very fortunate in the state of Texas in 2010 and in 2000 to add representatives to the total number. We don't ask for Social Security number. We don't ask any banking information. We don't ask if you're a U.S. citizen. All we want to know is on April 1, 2020, what was the residence that you were living in and who were all the individuals living in there. So if you reside in Irving, we want to count you there once and only once. Clearly, an area of opportunity in Irving is with the colleges and universities that we have, many of them move back home, but we're still completing their coursework. We want them to go to the website, 2020census.gov, and put in that Irving address that they would have been living in on April 1, 2020, had COVID not occurred. Remember, reach out to those college students. Help that elderly person. Help that other individual that lives right next door to you that needs help in answering the census.
And you mentioned some of the questions that are asked, and I bet that leads to a question for you in some cases. What about confidentiality? What is done with this information?
Thank you for asking that question. Title 13 of the U.S. Code provides confidentiality to all individuals who answer the census. The INS, the IRS cannot go to court and find out if Jerome Garza filled out the 2020 census. It is totally confidential, guys. So when you do that, and what we have found is many people living in apartments, it states only 3 people can live here. But we all know that there's 4 or 5 because that's how you make ends meet sometimes. Your landlord does not have and will not obtain that information. No one can have it. So put the correct answer, how many people live there. The information is confidential, guys. No one will have access to that information.
All right, Jerome Garza from the Census Bureau, thanks so much for the update on how the census is going in these unusual times.
Thank you very much. Remember, go online today, answer 10 easy questions, help your community, bring resources that you and your neighbor will need one day.
And once again, here's the website to respond or learn more. It's 2020census.gov.